Hi guys. Kind of weird things happen when Mother Nature does what it wants to do. Dawn and I have been in an extreme drought, and the problem with droughts is a lot of times the crops that are coming on, whether it be the mast crops or the berry crops, they don't get water. Once they start coming on, they mummify and start to fall off without fully maturing. And some things, it expedites or hastens their withdraw back into the earth and getting ready for the winter. Anyway, I was surprised today. We were out here looking for lion's mane and a couple other things. I was surprised to see this coming up. This is usually a mushroom that's later in the autumn. I've seen it all the way up into the time it snowed on them. But this is Armorelia. I doubt I'm pronouncing that right. But this is the honey mushroom, and I wanted to show you guys real quick. This batch is a little small, and I know that I'm going to get a lot of honey mushrooms this year, so I'm not going to harvest this group. But honey mushrooms grow on stumps, they grow on wood, and there's the ringless honey and a couple variant species. But there's some ideas out there with foragers on how to make them not slimy, and then there's some others that say they get stomach aches after eating them. Personally, I've never had any of that happen. Honey mushrooms can be slightly slimy when you start to cook them, but it always goes away, and I've never had any discomfort or diarrhea or stomach aches or anything. It's actually one of my favorite fall mushrooms. I love it for anything you would use a store-bought button mushroom for. I use this for, other than I've seen people eat button mushrooms raw and out of the store, and you shouldn't do it. You do know they're raised in poo, right? Anyway, I wanted to show you how I harvest this, because there are some foragers I know that harvest this after it opens up. And after this mushroom opens up, it'll be quite buggy, and so I'm always selective on how I harvest it. Now when you look at this mushroom, you can see the stalk is dotted, and you can see this veil, and then of course the top is slightly dotted too, and it is growing on a stump. So they grow in clusters. The spore print is white, the stalk is white, and this veil is what I peel off. I try to get them before the veil falls off, because when they open up, of course, the veil's gone and there's a veil remnant, except for the ringless honey, and it's called ringless because it's no veil to drop. Anyway, I do not cook this mushroom with the veils on it. I take the time to get rid of the veil on this mushroom, and the stalk can become slightly hollow as it ages, but it's not. And a lot of times I'll cut into a stalk or two of these just to see if there's bugs in them yet. And once you start to see brown hollow streaks in here, then beetle larvae have crawled up into the stalk and they're infecting this whole bloom of honey mushrooms. Honey mushrooms are really delicious. They're, like I said, one of my favorite fall mushrooms, and I gather them when I find them. Now once this opens up fully, they can get relatively large. Honey mushrooms can get relatively large. This is a small bloom. They just started. And I won't be harvesting these, but I do like to harvest the young ones that have not opened yet, or they just opened and the veil is still in kind of a ring around the stalk. And when the veil is still in a ring around the stalk and it's starting to open, they're delicious. Now, I have eaten them fully open without the veil. And a lot of times in these clusters, you'll see the underneath mushrooms as you're picking the clusters have a white powdery substance on top of the caps. And it looks almost like mildew, but it's not mildew, it's actually the spores from the mushrooms that are above it. And that's why it's whitish gray, or looks whitish gray. Honey mushrooms are something that you should look into. Do your research, make sure you have the right mushroom. Don't eat mushrooms raw, but collect these and try collecting them with the veil still attached, and pull the veil off and fry them up in a skillet or put them in a casserole and see what you think. And also go ahead and try them once they're fully open, once the veil's gone, and see if you can tell the difference. Personally, the ones that are fully open are so buggy, I rarely find any that don't have bugs. And you'll clean them up and you'll put them in the fridge, and you'll go to cook them later and you'll see bugs in them, and it just makes you lose your appetite. So the honey mushroom is one I recommend you search and seek out. You'll find them in late fall, growing on stumps, growing on wood under the ground, in clustered blooms. It's, once you get to recognize the mushroom, it's pretty indistinguishable. Now, there are some lookalikes for beginning foragers, so definitely do your research. But once you've harvested it a few times and you've cut it a few times, it's one of those mushrooms that's kind of unmistakable. And it has a very button mushroom flavor in my mind. So if you do like the store-bought button mushrooms, you're going to like the honey mushroom, and it's free. Happy foraging, guys.